Okay, so start now. Since I've been around for a while, I already know a few things, but so I understand a little bit more about what you're doing and how you do it. But now we'd like to have your, like, I don't know if you can make a timeline of your experience running this lab.
Running the labs
Uh-huh.
from you mean from the moment that I started the lab, for instance?
The landmarks and your major memories of those moments. Hallmark, no, how do you call it? Milestones.
Milestone. Ooh.
In your opinion, doesn't have to be like the official.
Okay. Can we go in another room?
Of course, whatever.
Because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to. Okay. So I officially started in June 2011, and I don't remember, I think 2 months earlier Rob started in the lab. He was alone in the room and we were communicating over internet, and he would ask me, the things to buy, that he would start buying them, but things like machines or bigger requirement. So I would put the list of the most obvious thing and then you get them. But the fact is that when I arrived, there were many things which we still had to buy. So in the beginning, it was a lot of thinking of what we would need and how to organize it and so on. And he was good in getting all the order and all the talk and the discount with the people. That was quite good. He was less good in organizing things like more scientific material, like antibody and these kind of things. So there I had to build up more this was something that I would have hoped to rely a bit more on.
So where were you before September or June?
I was in Lausanne at the APK.
Okay.
I was just in the lab finishing up for the revision of a paper which we had when I moved here. Because the last year of my postdoc, I had my daughter, and then I had 6 months of official leave, even though I was living very close to the lab. So often I would go during the week, sometime to teach and to show the other person which was doing the things that I was supposed to do otherwise, how to do. And so I was, but of course I wasn't full time in the lab in that 6 months. But then after I went back in the lab for 6 months for continuing this type of work as a postdoc until June, where I started here. And then in the September after, the 2 PhD started. And when they started, I would say the majority of the things were there, which were not the one that were specifically required for their work. And in particular, we had all the mice line, which were still on the way. So I imported them, and during the summer months, the mice were there. I was starting to breed them, but of course the colony started need time to be set up, so that part was a bit slow. And Stephanie helped a lot in this setting up of the mice colony. And in the beginning, I think the project the one of Stephanie was a little bit more advanced, because there were preliminary results and she started immediately doing things. With Yaisa it was a bit more difficult because she was starting something that was a little bit more from scratch. So we started to do the things, but it was a little bit more stressful, particularly for her, because she was worried, what if this doesn't work, what if that doesn't work, because there wasn't anything solid to start from, while Stephanie had already a clear observation that we had to justify. In the end, it was okay, but I would say the first year was more difficult for Yaisa because of the nature of her project, which was a little bit more of a gambling. So we didn't know how it was going to be, and there were a couple, probably something like 3 months in between, where we had to wait for results to come, because it was a microarray, so it was a processing of getting the data and then analyzing the data, so it was a long time to wait. And in this period of waiting, I had to keep her busy with other things, from other side project, or because she couldn't just sit and wait, because she was so worried. Or what if there is nothing coming out? I cannot just be here sitting and waiting. So it was a lot of. So I gave her a side project, which at the end she took during those 3 months, but then at the end she didn't have time to follow, because in the end we did get a lot of information from this array, and then the project started more intensively. So I would say in the first year, my main concern was about them, because they were obviously both very good and talented. And on one hand, I was thinking this is going to be great for me, because this is the best setting I can start with, 2 students which are so good and they can do things. And on the other hand, I was of course insecure, like you are when you start, because you still are not sure whether you are capable of doing the group leader. So obviously you think, oh, now I've got 2 excellent students which has an extraordinary potential. What if I, ruin their PhD? What if I don't manage to give them the support and guide them well, and therefore using this potential that they have? So this was my first concern in the very beginning, but I have to say that then went away. So at the end of the first year, I didn't have it anymore. Somehow it got diluted in the middle of other worry, and that one really, I didn't think about it anymore. And then in the end it turned out well. So I would say that, because the majority of the women in particular that I talked to, they have 2 reasons why they don't want to start a group, which is, I don't know whether I'm capable of doing it, and the second reason is, I don't know if I'm able to take the responsibility of someone else's career. So these are the 2 worries which effectively block the majority of women to apply for a PI position. And I had them too, I cannot deny. I just went through like you throw yourself in the water. And in reality, if you do that, you realize that those worries are there, but they're really temporary. They're only there in the very beginning. Because when you start doing things, you just don't think about it anymore.
You don't have time to think about it.
No, somehow things just go. I mean, they are worry, but they are based on things that you don't know. Right? It's more linked to the fact that I don't know what it's like, and therefore I don't know whether I'm capable. But you don't even know what you need to do, what you would need to do to be capable. So is nothing else than the fear of something that I don't know what it's like. Okay. It's a completely different job when you do a postdoc. You do a postdoc, you know exactly what you have to do. That's your project, that's what you have to think about it. And you know that the main problem you have as a postdoc is to have the balance between the knowledge you gain by reading paper and the results you get by doing manual work. And you know you have to have 2 of them, and your main worry is to have a balance between the 2, because the most of the time the balance is towards the work. So you keep your job keep you too busy at the bench, and you never have enough time to keep up with the literature and to read and to think. This is the main problem you as a postdoc. You know that, and that's it. Then if you go from there to a PI position, you know that it's completely different, and you don't know what it is.
So you didn't know anything about, for example, buying equipment?
But this is nothing. Buying equipment is nothing.
No, but I'm just saying that
This is not a problem. I mean, you look what is there, you meet the people which sell them, you see what discount they make, you see the price and what they give you. You have your brand, which are the one that you are used to use when you are a postdoc, and then those are your favorite just because you know them, and then you will have a bias there. When I came here, for example, I had a bias towards microscope, which were from Leica, because in the institute where I was, the Leica were the more used, and that's what I was used to. And then here, everyone was on Zeiss. And then I started use Zeiss also because the service is what makes a difference. So not so much, apart from technically now Zeiss is better, but even here in London, the service for Leica, it's very crappy. So you buy a microscope and then something happen, you get a technician that know nothing about microscope. So you really don't want you don't want a Leica, but this you don't know when you start. But this is a country issue, right? In other places might be different. So the instrument it's nothing. The main concern is about the fact that you have to think much more and do much less practical work when you start a group. And because you had already, as a postdoc, the bias towards the practical, and your main problem was to do a lot of literature and a lot of thoughts, and then okay, when I start a lab, I have to do a lot of this thinking, and because I don't know how it would be like thinking about other projects rather than mine, maybe I don't know how to do, but effectively you had never time to practice this. And it's not that difficult. It's really something that once you start doing it, it's like, wow, it's like the same. I just have to expand it. And then you start enjoying it, because then you can think much broader, and you can just not think about one project. You can think about more. You can exploit more things. In the end, you discover, once you overcome the fact that it's not that difficult, then you start enjoying.
Okay, so that was the first year, but can you break down a little bit more on the first year? It was all the time like that, or at the beginning was something more relevant than the rest, and in the middle? I don't know, I'm thinking, for example, you didn't know anyone here, so maybe you spent time getting to know people, networking.
I know, not too much.
Reading more than working with your hands.
In the beginning, I had a lot of teaching for the students. We were doing more things together. We would do experiment together, which was nice. And then this, of course, got diluted the more they started to know things. And I tried to get Rob, the SO, involved into the work, and this was in the beginning. During the first year, I still had the idea that he was busy with setting up the lab, and then I didn't really get him to do the manual work. And then in the second year, I obviously realized that he couldn't really do much of a practical work. And this is when I started to have a problem, because I really needed someone that would. It's not a drama, because if you consider other laboratory in the world, they don't necessarily all have a scientific officer. But the fact that here, this institute have that, this is something that it would allow you to have a person which doesn't have a contract which expire. And if that person is good with science, it can possibly be a center of practical knowledge in the lab, which is always there. So then that person is gonna know where things are, is gonna know better than me what we have, what we don't have in terms of material. Is gonna know all the crucial technique which any student or any other person which come into the lab in the beginning would need to know, and that person can teach anybody. So it's very crucial, And many PI, they give to the SO a lot of responsibility practically in the lab. And then in the second year, I realized that I just couldn't have that. And that was okay in terms of other lab. If I would compare to the university lab, it was okay. My problem was like, okay, this institute works this way, and these people here that have their advantage, and they're gonna judge me for all these advantage. So I really should have them all. So that's why I started to have serious problem with an SO, that it wasn't able of doing what an SO normally here provided this advantage.
SO,
So there was-
scientific officer.
Yeah, so it was very, he's a nice guy, he's a fine, nice guy, but he didn't fulfill the requirement that I needed for that position. So in the end, this girl had, Stephanie Isa had more load, obviously, in terms of work, because there were some things that he could have done instead, or he could have helped them with. And psychologically it was also difficult, because he was still saying to them and to the rest of the institute that he would, help them and support them practically, and they were of course getting very annoyed by the fact that they didn't get it, and other students they did get that support, and on top of that the knowledge that he was spreading around was that they even got that. So they were really not so happy. So, and it's not good if you have to manage this happiness. But
So
it was a little bit destabilizing.
we are in the
but
second year now. So I think-
We are already in the second year, because these were in the first year this problem didn't appear that clearly, because there were more practical things which he had to take care, so it was fine.
So coming back to the first year, just to have a general idea, like what were your main activities in the first year? Or did they change compared to the second year?
In the first year, they changed in a way that I was a bit more free in terms of other duty, institute duty. So there were less meeting, because I wasn't part of any particular committee, like the fellowship committee or the BRAC committee, or where regularly you have to meet and then you have to read stuff. And I was getting less of requests for reviewing papers or.
So that was the first
So
year?
yeah, in the first year there was a lot less of all that.
Okay, so most of your time was...
Most of the time was finding as many project or side street we could possibly think.
Science what?
So
Sorry?
scientific thoughts, basically, about what the lab should be doing, or things to test, things to try. And then I was also doing some of those tests. So there were some idea, we could test this thing, we could test the other, and then I was doing it also. So we
Doing
had
experiments?
Yeah, I had some. Some of these things, for example, some of this thing which in the end are used by Lori, the second postdoc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these they come from a series of tests and stuff that I did in the first year. But now, of course, I would love to do that. And I hope that I still have the hope that I'll get to do that more. Also because now there is this the SO now is different. No? Now there is since this year there is Anna, and now with her I think if we do things four hands, maybe I can even use my hand again. This is my hope. Once I'm done with this funding application. The other thing that I did in the first year was, because they told me here, which it was possible to apply for grant in UK, and it was possible to take it, but that's only because in the UK they only give you half of the information. They don't give you the full information, because they never mention that if you're a core-funded institute, it's very unlikely that you're going to get any money based on the same data that got you the position. So you will need to have a publication as a last author, and then maybe on top of that you would have a collaborator with the university, and maybe you can get an UK grant. But they didn't really say that, because I asked the question, but can I apply for grant? And they said yes. The only answer to the very, very question because of course I didn't ask, is there anything I should know in terms of how many chances to get it?
Okay, so
I did apply for a couple. I tried this because all my study were on breast cancer, so I used this breast cancer campaign that in 1 year it has various levels. So you have a pilot grant, so very small, or project grant, or PhD fellowship. So I tried them all and I failed them all. Very frustrating.
No one worked?
No. And then in the beginning, you get this external reviewer, and then the external review say maybe one is happy, one is not happy, and they don't give you the money, and then you're like, okay, fine. And then the moment that I stopped to apply was the time that I applied for a project grant, and then I got 3 referees, and all of them were positive. I mean, they were all saying yes. And then the funding agent said no. And the reason why of saying no, it wasn't clear, and then they just said, but we cannot, this is a final decision, there are no possible appeal, because the referee are just one of the parameters, and the committee also have a last say, and we said no. And I was like, okay, that's obvious that they don't want to, but the problem is that I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with the fact that they make me spend time in doing it, because I do agree that someone at a university is the person, which is not core-funded, is the person that should get the money. Now that I know the system, I could see that, and there is no problem. But I just think that someone should have told me so that I wouldn't waste time. No? So I don't think it's completely unfair, because I can do my work anyway. The guy at the university cannot, so it's better if they take the money. But they should just not make us apply. It's a waste of time.
And when did you find out that there were special ways to do applications?
About one of the review basically wrote a subliminal message in between, said like, oh, it's a great proposal, the only thing that would have, it's a pity, no, he said it's a pity that it doesn't have any collaborator special at the university. And I was like, oh, okay, this guy is trying to tell me something here. So then I start to figure out, okay, I'm doing something wrong.
Okay. Well, so.
But it's fine. I mean, it helped me. It helped me in a way, because I did do something that I have never done before, which was applying for grant and writing the things, and it was nice that from the first to the last, I got an improvement in feedback from the external reviewer. So in the end, if you see it like this, it wasn't really a wasted time.
Okay, yeah. So that's first year, right?
Yeah.
Some grant applications, some planning projects and experiments.
Yeah.
Doing experiments,
Yeah,
and also
absolutely.
teaching Ilaria, Jaisa and
Yeah.
and
Yep.
so at the beginning you felt a little bit more insecure because you didn't know
Yeah,
how to
the
manage
feeling was about that. Yeah.
yeah, and that was throughout the first year, more or less.
More in the first 6 months, I would say,
Okay.
and then slowly got diluted and more and more and more, and by the end of the first year, I think it wasn't there anymore. I don't know. I felt like I'm in the middle of it. It's fine. I think I can do it. I didn't have the thoughts anymore whether I stopped wondering whether I could do it or not. It's not that I decided that I could. I just stopped asking the question.
You just started doing things.
Yeah,
without-
I just didn't think about it anymore.
Okay, so
But it's striking then because I didn't realize that before, but it's striking now to talk with these postdoc which are in the situation where, like, I don't know whether I should apply for a PI position or not because my CV would allow me to try, but I don't think I will do. And then when I ask why, they all give me the same question, the same answer, which are the same worry that I had, but they are actually physically stopping them, and they're not doing it. At least I didn't know. They're sure that they cannot do, even though they cannot possibly know.
Yeah. Well, and talking about that, what do you think is the role or the main tasks of the PI?
Whoa, this is difficult.
Because I think it's related, because
What is the main task?
I'm not saying the main. I'm
No.
saying that, like, the main, like, I mean, the most important ones. Or maybe we can.
Okay.
Maybe you don't need to tell me, because
There
the three
are
most
two
important.
class. There are two class.
Okay.
One is pretty professional, which is have to do with science, right? So and these I cannot say. I mean, it's very difficult to claim that you're good at it. No, in anything actually, it's very difficult to say I'm good at it or not. I just think whether what you would need as a scientific skill is the ability to look at the science, like what we know, and ask the most relevant question, which is step one, and the step two, which is more important than step one, is finding the best possible way of addressing the question. And this is when you start thinking about, this is a project that I would like to do. So for starting to do your science, these are the things, and this is about a scientific skill. And it's difficult to say, and this is when it becomes difficult when you start judging other people's science, because this is, in the first year it didn't happen very much, but then as you go more, this is what you're asked to do. So then they come and the same grant application that I was doing, now I'm getting as an external reviewer, then I have to judge other people's science. And this is very difficult, because then you think, well, this is not, for me it wouldn't be that relevant question. And I think that also there, the fair thing to do would be, but that doesn't mean that it's not a relevant question. And then I think that the only thing in this case, when you have to judge other people's science, the only thing you can judge is, like, it is, in my opinion, of course it has always to be your opinion, it is this person addressing that question in the best possible way. This is the only thing you can objectively judge. You should never judge whether the question is really relevant. I mean, you can think about it, but you cannot kill someone's science because it does things that you wouldn't do. This, I think, is just, this has to do a little bit with ethics also, and for the way you think about yourself. So that's why I'm saying everything I tell you is very personal, because unfortunately there are people in this business that they think that they are right, and everything they think is right, and the other people are wrong, which is not a very good scientific approach, I think. You should always doubt yourself, right? So this has to do with more scientific skill, if you want. So you need to have your own, and of course the best feedback you get is when people think that you are asking the right question, and people think that you are addressing them the right way. This is what makes you be seen by others as the good scientist. So you do your thing, whether you are or not, the other will tell, in a nutshell. And the other thing about being a PI, it's something else. It's something that has to do with people. But I think this is not just in the scientific world. I think this is this is in every domain, no? Leadership, I think, in every domain. The way you deal with the people that you work with. And this, I mean, you can try to make course, and at the end, in the end, you have to find your way.
And okay.
But it's not easy. That's the more difficult part, I would say.
And can you name more activities that a PI usually does?
Activity.
Starting from the most important ones.
The most important one is when you talk with the lab member.
With whom?
The lab member.
Okay.
And you discuss, because this is what matter. This is what matter for the work, because what they do is what you do, and the way they do is the science you make. So
you mean like
the time that you spend in personal meeting, for me, is the main, more important job, because there is where you decide the experiment to do, and then after they come back to you with the experiment done, in the best case, which unfortunately most of the time is wishful thinking, they can come up with the interpretation for the results, but this is not always the case. So the more the result, let's say you discuss, and then you say, okay, here is my hypothesis, and for this we are going to do this experiment, and then even if you don't say what the result that you want to get should be, is kind of obvious from their hypothesis, that everyone set up an expectation for the result. And then what happened, the experiment is done, and sometimes you have a yes-no answer, which is like, yes is like that, no is not like that, and that's easy. But that's also not the majority of the case, because the majority of the case, it come up something which is not either yes or no. And this is the point where the person which actually has done the work, it doesn't know whether the whole hypothesis was right, whether this whole project is going to fall apart. So there can be very dramatic interpretation of results like this. So then you have to sit together and say, well, but this could be interesting because this and this and that, and then you can see that the person is like, oh, release, oh, wow, then it wasn't a disaster. So in the end, the job that you have to do is to repair the disaster that come up according to them from their results, and put them back on. It's like if they're driving these little wooden things with wheel on a very narrow street, and then every time they go, they actually, one of the wheels is up. So your job is kind of, okay, I put you back on the street, off you go. And then they go back on the other side. So, but that's the way of moving along, more or less. So the best person in the end, when you see the growth, is when you see, I mean, using the same metaphor, for example, with Stefan and Elisa, it was beautiful because I moved from having that, having to put them always back on the street very often in the beginning, of them not even going out at the end of it, because then the experiment, they would come back and say, oh, it wasn't really what we were thinking, but actually this is the results, and in the end what it could be is this and that. So I think it's more like this than what we've thought. And this is basically your dream, because then, especially if it's a PhD, then you say, oh, you see, I knew that you had potential, and I did manage, you see? I mean, look at that. Now you can just roll on this very tiny street all alone. No. So this is the satisfaction, at least, when you work. Of course, not always work.
Okay, so this is about personal meetings. So
yeah, this
should
is
be the
priority
most important.
number one.
Okay.
Whatever keep you away from talking with your people is what keep you away from doing the things that you actually should be doing for yourself.
And what else?
Then you have to take care of other people's science, review paper and grant, and Then occasionally they can ask you to write review, and then okay, then you can do this is also for you, but then you have to go to meeting. But if you go to meeting, means that you have something to say, so it's a good thing. The first year I did still go to meeting using my last postdoc work, which came out actually when I started here. At the end, it came out in December of 2011. So I already started here in June.
Mm-hmm.
So then it came out, and then I started to go also be invited in meeting the whole year after that. And I could present those data, but of course they weren't mine from the lab, they were mine from the postdoc. But it was very useful to start connecting with the scientific world internationally as having a lab, not as a...
Mm-hmm.
Because I would go there presenting my work as a PhD, but saying, and now I have the lab here. So then you kind of connect.
Like before that, like when you say you had to review papers, write reviews,
Yeah.
why is that relevant? Why
What is relevant?
Why?
Why? Because this is part of the job.
But
I mean, the infrastructure work, that there are pots of money which are given for research. How do you choose who to give them? How would you give a grant if there is no scientist which have a similar expertise that you ask him what you think about this work?
I understand that part, but why did you say yes when they ask you to?
Because it's part of your job. Of course you can say no. You will say no to some of them. If you have accepted, for example, now I have, depends the other thing that you have to do, no? I need to do other things for me because I need to write this grant for myself. I got a review of a paper to do. I said, okay, I can do it. And then 3 days after I got another, and then to that one I'm going to say no. So it depends on the load, and you have to make your choice. But then you also have to do.
Yeah, but for example, if you get 2 requests of review grants at the same time,
Yeah,
and you only have time for doing one,
then you decline the other.
No, but if you get the 2 at the same time, the 2 requests, how do you decide which one is more?
Which one do I? Well, the one that I feel more like we win. So,
But is there any like strategic criteria?
well, yeah, probably. If I would have to decide between a ERC and an MRC, I would probably go for a ERC because European versus local.
And that means?
Yeah, I don't know. It's more. Well, you don't know who are in the panel which have select you as a. Of
Okay.
course, they might be all important, but then you make your. You probably would select more than one that would like to get. Yeah, probably you have that bias. So which one is the grant that I would like more to have? That one. Okay, then I'm gonna select that. Of course, given that they're both equally interesting, because of course if I get
Yes.
one which is more interesting than the other, then okay, that would win.
Okay, so in write reviews.
Write review. I mean, now I did it something very bad because this is also politically. This is something. That's why I'm So
asking.
this, I think I did something bad, but you only know what you can do. So I received 2 requests for writing a review. Beside, they were both on topic that I didn't want to write. This is an important information. So you write a review, you want to write something that is important for you. And this was about something that I didn't feel like writing, both of them. And the thing is that they came, and the deadline would have been in the early next year, which is the same time that I have the deadline for this big grant that I want to write. So I thought, I can accept. And if I wouldn't know myself, I can accept and say, there is a long time, I can just write them now, and then by the time there is a deadline, I don't have a problem. Because I know that I don't work that way. I always do things close to the deadline. So then I already saw myself having the deadline for the grant, which is very stressy, and having also to do this other review, which I didn't even want to write. So in the end I said no. And the people, I don't think they were very happy. But I should have, politically I should have said yes. These are the things which...
Yeah, the
even
political part is the one I'm interested in. Like, why it's good to make them happy?
In fact, I didn't.
No, but
I don't know how good or bad it
is.
is.
You recognize that it wasn't...
Because isn't it always good to have people happy around you?
No, but I mean, why you know that they want to be, that they have to be happy? Why... What are...
I don't know what the consequences would be if they're not happy. Is that what you say?
Uh-huh.
Well, they can get a grant from me, and if they don't like me, then they would look at it unfavorable.
Okay.
There is always personal, no?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you also have to go to meetings.
Yeah.
And then you have to present your work.
Yeah.
How?
It's okay. We still have like 15 minutes.
Okay. Is it getting boring?
No. I enjoy it.
Then you have to... You started to go to meetings as a PI.
Yeah.
So you're presenting data. In this case, you were presenting data from your postdoc.
Yeah. In the beginning it was okay, and then after I stopped accepting to go because I didn't want to present it anymore. After a year, I thought it was too long.
And why did you like to go to these meetings at the beginning?
Because it's important that you get to know people. That is very important.
Why?
We are back to the same thing of why it's important to make people happy, because if you write a paper, you write a manuscript and you send it, and then the reviewer gonna receive it, and then they see the last author. It's a name, and it's a name. They have never seen the person. Okay, they will look at the science. Okay, if you have met someone which is going to be your reviewer in a meeting, maybe you were at the coffee break and you had a cup of joke, and it's a human interaction, no? Then you have a coffee together, and then you think of each other. I see this person and say, oh, this is a nice guy, no? Or that's your opinion. And then you go back, and then I don't know how long after you get the paper from that person, and you see the person, and it's not now just a name, because you remember that coffee break. And you remember thinking, that's a nice guy. Oh, I remember he had exactly the same problem that I had with this or that. And then what happened? Then you read the work, and you always, in the back of your mind, you have a favorable thoughts about the person that had done the work. I'm not saying that you're not going to judge it objectively, but it's highly likely that you will be less nasty.
Yeah, you're more trustable because you already know the person, and
there's a lot of psychology in that, isn't it?
Human beings.
Yeah. So it's always good to associate a name to a person. Obviously, if you are having a good impression, if you're having a bad impression, no.
But yeah. But anyway, you stopped.
I stopped. I didn't really stop. Is it okay?
It sounds like an important thing to do.
Yes, I know, but then you cannot go on. So I did a lot of meeting in the first year. Really, after in the first year from publishing that work, I went to many places, including Japan, the States. I presented this thing really in a lot of places, including I did the biggest. I think I had the biggest audience that year because I went to the big AACR, which is the American Association for Cancer Research, and they organize one meeting, annual meeting. They organize many other subset, but this one is the cancer meeting. So there is like the entire US which work on cancer is there, plus Europe, plus Asia. It's enormous. They have 20,000 people in that meeting.
Wow.
It's enormous. So, and of course it's all working in parallel sections. So when I had to go, I thought, well, it's fine, we're going to have parallel question. Of course, it is not about having 1,000 people. In fact, there weren't thousands people, but there were easily 1,000 people in the room where I was presenting. I think I had never had that many people in front of me, and that was quite frightening to say. Yeah, didn't enjoy that much, but it was okay. It went well, so it's done. But these are things that I don't particularly enjoy doing.
So, and you did all this in the first year more often?
Yeah, no, it went through into the second, because it was the first year after publication, which was December 2011. So in the end, it went for the whole 2012.
Okay, so this is 2012.
Yeah, it's the whole 2012 that I went in various meetings.
So what was happening here in the lab? Did they waiting for the results, or they were?
No, they don't. They say good luck, and then I go, and then I come back. I mean,
No. I mean in the lab, like Jaisa and Steffi. You were out most of the time.
No, not most of the time. I mean, I went to various, but I wasn't away for maybe the States. I stayed 4 or 5 days, but that was the longest. There in Japan, I stayed a bit longer, but then the other were like a couple of days.
So the theory predicts, the group theory predicts some kind of conflict after the first stage, in which you
conflict with
among the lab members.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Exactly 1 year. But this is similar to
no 1 year. After the first stage, which is about like orientation and getting to know each other. And
but is it like the crisis of the 7 year after wedding or no?
No, it's because you start to know each other, and you create different subgroups within the main group, and then you have different interests, so they clash.
I see. Yeah, probably that would happen if you have lots of people.
Okay, but
so in September 2012, Luigi started. So I had a total of 3 people plus Esso. So it wasn't so much to conflict. There were conflict in a way that Jaisa and Stephanie are very different. Their temper, the way of being is very different. And these I knew already when I picked them. I was thinking about these 2 people are very different, but I want them both, and I'll see. The thing is that I think they're very mature, and they have the maturity of dealing with each other very well. So that I think they were fighting occasionally throughout these 4 years, but they were dealing very well with each other. And I think only once last year I got to know that they had a problem with each other. For the rest of the time, I didn't even know. They would have, for example, a fight in the evening, and then the next morning they were fine. Somehow they had the way of figuring out, but because, as I said, they were very mature in there.
So sorry, I forgot, but I asked about like the main activities and go to meetings, and is there any other important one?
Yeah, internally is
or
to take charge.
Internally?
Externally would be the meeting. Internally is to take charge of. If they ask to be part of a committee, then you should do it. It's taking time, but then you are also evaluated for your contribution to the institute, so it falls into the. Because otherwise you can decline all that, and you can think the most important thing that I should be doing is to talk with my lab member, and then maybe have time with some experiment and do my own science. So in this view, you would not review any grant, not review paper, and possibly also not be part of committee. And your science is not going to be directly negatively affected, because who will know? The review, as a reviewer, you're always anonymous. So who will know? Nobody will know, right? And there are people, I know that there are people that do that, but I don't think it's correct, because that's what the job description is, you have to fulfill. Because
Another question. Okay, you told me about like the importance of going to meetings and
Yeah.
getting to know other people because they might be reviewers. And
yeah, that's the whole thing.
What are the other like purposes, or what are the benefits
Then there is
of
the scientific reason, of course, to know what is going on before it's published. You get to know what other people are doing, and you talk to people. Many things they happen because of going to meeting. You get to know that there is someone working on a very similar thing at you. You have to hurry up, or even better, you can discuss and say, shall we coordinate? Shall we do these things in parallel, so that now we submit it together rather than having a race with each other? Let's coordinate.
Steffi told me what happened with their. Like I asked her like to tell me the whole story
Yeah.
and she said something.
So you
like,
know that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, that wasn't a success, because I mean, it was a success in the end for us, but it
Was
wasn't. It was a success for us, but it wasn't a success in a way that what I was just saying. Because the best thing that can happen, you see someone that have a similar thing than you, and then you go there and you say,
Yeah, she
you
told
do
me
what
that
I
as
did,
well.
no? You go there and say, okay, shall we somehow submit it together? We go if you're close, because it looked nearly done. Mine is also nearly done. So shall we finish up together, and then we send it to the same place, and we reinforce each other? Because of course, if you are giving the same message in two different way, obviously you're gonna be more convincing, right? That's clear. And this woman could have done it nicely, because she could have told me, look, I'm already having this agreement with this other person, so obviously we cannot submit 3. I'm already submitting with him. I wouldn't have any problem with that, because of course. But then she didn't say, and then she tried to say that she wasn't ready, and then we couldn't do it. And then the other person, which was the organizer of the meeting, he told me the day after that actually he was co-submitted with her. But I think the reason why she didn't tell me is because she didn't want me to know that they were submitted to that journal. I mean, that's the only reason that I can see. Because then, of course, I would have asked, where do you submit it?
To see if you...
Exactly, you know? So then he told me that they were submitting it there, at Nature, and then as a back-to-back, and then he told me, honestly, you can either try to compete with us there, or you can go to another journal. On the other hand, the other journal, they're a bit slower in processing, so we might be faster. And then, so I mean, then it was up to me to what to do. So then I didn't see any loss in trying to go with them. But because of this, I wouldn't have sent it to Nature myself. I think I would have always gone to Nature Medicine or something a bit lower. So in the end, they make me submit it in the place where in the end got accepted. So after all, I cannot say that it wasn't well,
So and it's funny because, well, not funny, but seems to me that it's not very common, or this is my idea, that the Steffi's project was in part led by you, her supervisor, but also by the peer reviewers, because they were the ones who were asking for more things.
That's always the case. It's not like it?
Oh no,
it's
I
always
don't
the
know.
case.
Really?
Yeah. That's why the job of the reviewer is important, because effectively they are.
But do they do it like, because this was like half in a year after?
Yeah.
Is it like at that stage or at the end?
No, it's throughout the revision. So you go and you submit your paper, and then the paper goes for reviewer. Reviewer see it and said, "Oh, I have this problem, that problem," and then you get it back, and then you say, "Oh, I can try to fix this problem. Then you do the experiment which fix those issue, and then you do this for each of the reviewer, and then you send it back, with the new data in the story, and then you write a point by point rebuttal to the critics that they have made, and then you reply with yes, we agree with these critics, and that's what we have done, and then and so on, and then you see what they say. I mean, the happy end is when they all say, oh, the paper has dramatically increased, all my concern has been addressed, it's fine to publish it, I'm happy with it.
But
So
when do you usually send when do you usually send the paper for review? In the stage of a PhD student, in the different stages?
that doesn't depend on the PhD student stage, it depends on the work.
Yeah, but usually when does it happen?
When you think that the work is at the stage which will be criticized, but it won't be killed. Because you cannot send it when you think it's perfect, because it will never be perfect. It won't even be perfect for you, imagine for the other. So you are always going to get criticized. Even if you would hypothetically think that it's perfect, other people are not going to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even worth waiting for that moment. So you should submit it before you think it's perfect, because you think, I'm going to make it perfect together with the reviewer.
But statistically, like, would it be?
No.
Do you think that it's like?
Statistically.
But I'm sure it's not before the first year.
Of course not, unless it's a...
If it's a curve, when would you say like most people submit it? This is the 4 years of the PhD.
I would say that statistically, the submission would be from here to here.
This is where most
Most of the students would do it after the 4 year.
after the 4 years.
Yeah.
So in this case, it was around here. I think.
No,
The first time they
I think it was here.
really.
She got it accepted here.
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't know why I thought it was before. Yeah,
no,
but
wait,
you're right.
from the beginning. Yeah, we send it in. We send it here more or less when I started. No, when she started. It's true. Around summer.
When she started, what?
When I started, not when she started. So it's true
When you
that she
started
started the lab, not when she started PhD. She started in September. So we submitted some months before her third year. It's true.
No, but yeah.
But statistically, that happened later.
Interesting. Yeah, that's why.
And both of them, because also Yaiza was like,
Really?
yeah, also Yaiza was here in the third year, because also her it took a year, everything included. Everything including the acceptance and everything, the waiting time.
I think it's time already. Right?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I still have more questions, but we can do that some other day or some.